So I'm going to turn the mic over to Alan to introduce Beth and to actually facilitate the conversation with her. So Alan, who is the vice president of the chapter, if you don't know him, he's up next.
Well, thank you, Judy, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for our annual meeting. I'm especially excited about our keynote speaker for two reasons. First, because she is now leading a center and teaching at where I received my undergraduate university, undergraduate degree there at Northeastern University. And because of the great body of work that she has been doing and is doing that really impacts public administration, public policy, and really the lives of a lot of Americans as we move forward. Beth Noveck is a professor at Northeastern University, which if you don't know where Northeastern is, it's in Boston, Massachusetts. I will say there is now an Arlington campus, or Arlington, Virginia campus that is just opening. And she, at the university, she directs the Burns Center for Social Change and its partner project, the Governance Lab, which is the Gov Lab, and its MacArthur Research Network on Opening Governance. She is the author of, I know you can't really see this book, but Solving Public Problems, How to Fix Our Government and Change Our World. It was released in 2021. It was named a best book of 2021 by Stanford Social Innovation Review. Before joining Northeastern, she was at New York University and at Rutgers. And actually before that, she served in the White House as the first United States Deputy Chief Technology Officer and Director of the White House Open Government Initiative under President Obama. United Kingdom Prime Minister David Cameron appointed her as a senior advisor for open government. At GovLab, she directs better governance programs, including work with public institutions on public engagement and lawmaking, sources experts to find innovative solutions to hard problems, and works with citizens and cities to co-create solutions for public problems, which means that she fits in wonderfully with our group. She's a graduate of Harvard University and Yale Law School. And as Beth and I have talked about, we are both lovers of cats. And I can see her cat is joining her. My cat's sleeping. She's also is an author of numerous other books. I really encourage you to look up Beth's authorship. And also we did send out a link to her bio in our mailing. So if you want to check out more of her bio, because I could have gone on for another 20 minutes about her bio, but I want you to listen to Beth. So Beth, thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm going to turn over the floor to you. Once Beth is done, we will then have about 15 minutes for questions and answers. So Beth, thank you.
Great, and I'll try to be brief because it's late in the evening and I'd rather have more conversation. So this is Mozart, who never misses a Zoom call or a chance to drink out of a human glass of water, which is what she's really interested in. And she's going to make as much noise as possible in the background. So my apologies, that will stop hopefully in just a moment. So Alan, thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here. And as somebody who was and continues to be a public servant, one of the things you didn't mention is that in my copious spare time, I'm also the Chief Innovation Officer for the state of New Jersey. So I continue to work in the public sector, and I have worked in the public sector, obviously, for the federal government. So I am just always happy to be with anybody who is interested in public administration, a nerdy topic that is close to my heart. I will say, though, I did offer Alan the choice to do the original topic that we planned, or to talk about ChatGPT. So if you would like me to throw out the whole talk, this is the chance. Or I will also invite you, if you would like to spend some time at the end, we can just talk about AI and government, which seems to be the topic du jour. So, but as promised, let me find, whoops, oh, never a dull moment with the tech, speaking of technology. Let me just full screen the slides for a second here. I am sorry about this. Here we go. View. I am in a different program than I usually use. Full screen. Here we are. Okay. Let me try this one more time here. Okay, so I promised Alan I would talk a little bit about the book that I wrote and connect it to the work that we're doing right now. So I'm going to breeze through and actually skip over some of the book stuff to connect it to what I'm doing right now and to squeeze in a little discussion about AI. So I'm going to try to do that all in just a few minutes. So the impetus really for the book has to do with a long-standing career, what's getting increasingly long, having worked in and around the public sector and with wonderful people in the public sector like this person, Dino Cantu, who was a student of mine and who then went on to become the Chief Innovation Officer of San Pedro Garza de Garcia, a city in Mexico, where she is especially known, let me see if I actually, for the work that she has done building chatbots to help deliver emergency services to victims of domestic violence in the work that she has done. So allowing you to use WhatsApp to call a first responder and get aid brought to you without alerting the person who is abusing you. Some of you may know Ali Nouri. He's the former president of the Federation of American Scientists. Ali is currently serving in the Department of Energy. Anybody work with him or know him? But I list him here by his, so he does all things congressional for the Department of Energy these days. He's responsible for pushing a lot of money out the door. But I list him by his former title largely because in that capacity, he has helped to convene a network of hundreds, if not thousands now, of PhD level scientists who have built tools to provide real-time advice to people during COVID, a project called Ask a Scientist that we worked on together, in fact, where people could type in their questions and get real-time answers to their COVID questions. And I wanted to show you these two public servants as just two examples from around the world of people who have really been engaged in working in a very different way than at least the way we thought about work in the public sector when I first started doing it, and I think that even that we do today. They are people who do things in a way that is, first and foremost, much faster than we've ever done things before, throwing some caution to the wind in terms of risk, something that we saw a lot of people do during COVID, especially as we needed to respond faster. They do very data-driven work. So thinking about especially how do we use technology and data, now especially with AI, the ability to use larger quantities of data to help develop solutions that are really evidence-based and data-driven, delivering information to people in a form that's actually useful to them and responsive to their needs, and above all, using community engagement, or what is sometimes called human-centered design, or there's lots of other terms for it, collective intelligence, but essentially thinking about how do we work with people to give them the services that they want. They are what Eleanor Ostrom in her dissertation nicknamed the public entrepreneur, a term that I think is fortunately coming to describe many more people, and many people have always existed in public administration, but who have often been under-celebrated, under-recognized, and hidden, and that I think we need to do more to celebrate, to cultivate, and to train, as I'll get to in a moment. So these are people who know how to go from idea to implementation faster, and to deliver products, services, policies that really improve residents' lives in a more effective way, because they marshal a certain set of skills. And that's really fundamentally what the book is about. And I'm not going to tell you about each of these skills in detail. I'd be interested in your reactions as to what you think is the toolkit of the effective public entrepreneur or public servant or public professional. But I think that if you work backwards from the most effective people that we know, there's a certain set of things that they master and that they know how to do. And long story short, the point of the book is to say we can identify what those skills are, and we need to do more to invest in training people, both public professionals of today and most importantly, the ones who are upcoming tomorrow, in this skill set, because that will help to create the government that is deserving of people's trust, because it is more effective in how it works, more effective in delivering services and policies. And we can, in the Q&A, talk about where politics comes into this and how that relates. So let me, I'm going to talk maybe just about one or two of these skills, and then we can move on to some conversation, and I'll show you the full list again. And I was, in fact, in a conference the last 2 days at Harvard, which was focused on the topic of reimagining democracy. And we had all these wonderful people sort of brainstorming what democracy could and should look like and experiments that we should do. And we talked about the fact that we are not going to get to that future of more engaged, more participatory democracy if we're not giving people the skills to get there. So part of those skills and the way we've thought about that in the past about civics is knowing what are the branches of government and who is your senator and who are your members of Congress and all of that. And we said, you know what, that's all very well and good. And we really hope people do know what the 3 branches of government are and the founding documents and all that good stuff. But much more important today, if we want to build a truly participatory democracy, if we want to create truly effective institutions, is the ability, I would say, to be able to define the problem that we're trying to solve. And that is not something that we actually teach people. It is a skill, it is a process of peeling back the layers of the onion. It is a multi-step process of being able to identify what is the root cause of a problem, without which we tend to develop solutions that don't actually work. So, the paradigmatic example is we talked a lot recently about why didn't people wear masks during COVID? If the reason for that is that people can't afford a mask, that implies a very different solution than if the root cause of the problem is people don't believe that COVID exists, or people, have been told that mask wearing is not effective. So really understand, so this is a bit of an exaggerated example, but really understanding the root cause of the problem is fundamental, I think, to being able to develop and design effective solutions. Now, the kind of complex problems that policymakers work on, that people in public administration work on, always have many root causes. There's never just one. So there is an art and a science to be able to pick the root cause that you can work on and that is the right place for you to take action. And again, I think that's a discipline that effective people know, but that we frequently don't take that tacit knowledge and make it more explicit. It is really important to think about, in a world in which we want to promote equitable governance, that we do that process of defining the problem with the people we're trying to help. And with people who come from different viewpoints, from different worlds, from different disciplines, because it gives us a different way of often thinking about the problem that leads to new understanding about solutions. So my favorite anecdote in this space, and some of you may have heard this is not by no means original to me. Not only is the cartoon not original to me, but the anecdote of the slow elevator was told by in a book called The Art of Problem Solving by, I'm trying to remember, it's Janet Yellen's husband. If anybody can remember, I've forgotten his name, but he's Janet Yellen's husband. And he wrote a book called The Art of Problem Solving in the, 40 years ago. And he basically said, look, the reason we need to get these different perspectives is what happens when, and this is the anecdote you may have heard, the hotel manager, the guests are complaining the elevator is too slow. He goes to the engineer says, spend $5 million to replace the engine on the elevator. So he then goes to the psychologist. The psychologist says, you know what, the problem is not that the elevator is too slow. The problem is the wait is too long, and suggests, why don't you put in a mirror for $5, which will make the wait go by faster, which, by the way, is why when you go into an elevator and you have one of those quiz screens that asks you trivia questions, or you listen to music, that is all to decrease the cost of elevator repair and maintenance, because playing music is much cheaper. All that to say, when you talk to people from different viewpoints, from different communities, and most especially we'll talk in a second about the people experiencing the problem, you get a very different viewpoint potentially that opens up the solution space for solving problems. Data has obviously become an increasingly important part of the toolkit. I think over the last decade of the open data movement, we've come to embrace and understand the value of data. And surely if we didn't know it before, during COVID, when we obsessively checked the numbers and we checked the data and we were all addicted and fully dependent, here comes Mozart again, sorry. to what Johns Hopkins had to tell us, or I think I'm giving up and I'm just giving her the glass of water down here. Come on. There we go. There goes my glass of water. I now know I have to have two glasses, one for the cat and one for me. I don't know if anybody has this problem of the cat who thinks it's a human. We all came to really understand the importance of data during COVID and have become, I think, increasingly aware that we need the notion of data and evidence-based policymaking has surely become a hallmark of how we think about governing. But again, the role that engagement plays in working with communities to gather that data has, I think, become increasingly important. So this is a project you may not know about that in English is called RiskMap, and it's in the United States, but it started in Indonesia as a collaboration between it's called Peta Bencana and MIT, to combat the problem of fair weather flooding. And in order to get real-time data about where flooding is occurring, and we're talking dangerous, life-threatening levels of flooding that's increasing with climate change, they have a mechanism for asking residents to use their mobile phones to report fair weather flooding in a way that's quite nifty, that you don't have to know, you don't have to have a ruler to say how much flooding there is. It shows you a picture of a human body and you say, oh, it's up to my knees, it's up to my waist, it's up to my belly button. It's up to here. And they combine that with government data to provide more real-time response. This tool has become popular in Florida, again, under the name RiskMap, and it's being used in other jurisdictions, but just giving you one quick example of many, many, many that I could give you now about thinking about and understanding how do we use data to really understand and define what the problem is. How do we know how to do that, again, using available data sources? How do we know how to engage people in gathering data when we don't have it? And how do we do that quickly in ways that are going to really give us some insight into what people really want to know? My own team in New Jersey, for example, everything that we're responsible for, a lot of the kind of modernization and digital efforts, and everything that we do, we're constantly gathering data about what information people are looking for so that we can use their search queries to drive what we put first. So we built a site during COVID, covid19.nj.gov, and it allowed you to type in a question, and we used people's questions to dictate how we organized information on the page. We're a state of New Jersey, 8.8 million people. I would say we probably have, I don't know the exact numbers now, but I'm going to venture a guess that we're now 200 million users of this website, a million users a week. It's now dropped off considerably, but until recently it was 1 million users a week because people were getting information in a format that was actually useful to them. Yeah. Last skill that I'll mention here, and then there's many more kind of engagement skills that are relevant, is the popular topic now of human-centered design, of how do I go out and actually talk to people, not just observe them and gather data from them, but how do I actually talk to people about the problem that they're facing so that I can better solve it for them. So the well-known NGO Code for America, and by the way, plug the founder of Code for America, Jen Pahlka, has a new book coming out about government modernization in June. So I'll commend that to you. Code for America did a wonderful project to essentially talk to people, observe people, work with people who are applying for SNAP benefits, observe the fact that it was taking the SNAP benefit application in California is 100 screens long. People were giving up before they started. Lo and behold, they were able to re-engineer the process and redesign the form so that it now takes 10 minutes to apply, dramatically increasing the uptake of benefits. So not rocket science here, but this notion of how do we engage with people is a learned skill that we need to teach. So I want to skip ahead. I didn't cut out the slides because I wanted you to kind of see some examples. I'm just going to sort of scroll through this to the end and happy to talk about why I think these are the skills that are important. But they all come down to a set of skills that are fundamentally about how do we use data and how do we use people, how do we use engagement to get smarter, both about the problem we're trying to solve and also about the solution that we're trying to develop. I think when we work differently, when we focus on what these skills are, and by the way, I really like the focus on skills because it's something very practical. It's something we can do something about, unlike so many of the challenges we face today that are just so unbelievably overwhelming. When we focus on working differently, I think that we can actually improve how we do things and open up the solution space for larger scale change. The more that we can fix the form for SNAP or improve the website for COVID, then we can do more and more and more because we've changed how we worked. So that's why, let me just say, sort of to wrap up here, whether it's these skills or whether it's another set of skills, I think we do need to focus that if we want to get to from here to there to more effective governance, and by extension to a government that people trust more, we actually, we have to obviously focus on, choosing the right things to work on and doing stuff that matters. We have to not, as Mark Zuckerberg says, move fast and break things. We have to be very focused on obviously doing what people in public administration do, which is moving fast and fixing things. But we need to begin to think about how do we teach people, how do we help people to adopt the cultural practices, the ways of working that help people to build these skill sets. That allow us to think about how do I always combine data and engagement to solve problems. That in turn means how do I work more openly and more collaboratively? How do I do things faster and figure out what works? And above all, how do I think about what problem I'm trying to solve and ensure that what I'm doing is actually responsive to the problem instead of declaring mission accomplished and moving on, as so many, particularly politicians, prefer to do. So here, Alan, Northeastern slide for you. We have to focus on how we train the next generation. And we could talk a lot about the value of experiential and hands-on learning and how we do that. But we also have to think about how do we train today's generation of leaders and problem solvers. And by the way, the slide before, it's also a really marketable skill when we teach people how to solve problems. World Economic Forum and employers tell you this is the most important skill you have to have. But we know for government, I think it's really very fundamental. And that's why some forward-leaning governments, I think, have been really path-breaking in emphasizing skill development. So in Argentina, your salary and your promotion is dependent on your taking training in new ways of working. The German government has launched what they call the Digital Academy, and they have courses, and they use the English term because it sounds sexier, new work, as they describe it in English. And they're teaching digital skills, human-centered design, new ways of working. And at Northeastern, we have a program we call Innovate US, which you can find at innovate-us.org, where we offer free training in digital data and innovation skills with such fabulous instructors as Alan Lomax to public servants. It is run entirely by public servants for public servants. We have 6 states as partners, and we have, we'll be very excited to soon announce some fantastic new funding that will allow us to grow to 15 states. And for our pay now, I just agreed to train 1,000 federal interns. So that's part of a program of expanding internships in the public sector. So I've got 1,000 kids I've got to train. And I would invite you to check it out. And I will just fast forward here so we can conclude. Oops, wait, did I show you the wrong deck? Where's my slide? I want to show you my AI slide. Oh, well, I'm going to show you a different, let me just end share here for 1 second. And I want to see if I can show you one last thing. So, and then I will wrap up. Let me find this tab here. Here we go. Maybe I'll conclude with this. One of the most recent things we put out is, here we go. And you see my screen, which says a guide to responsible and efficient use of AI tools. So we put this just out last week. I'll play you a second of this so you can see. Oh, wait. Sorry, I don't think you can hear it with my headphones on. I'm going to just show you this and then I'll
Change the way governments work and serve residents.
This video was produced by Innovate US. Innovate US, free innovation and problem-solving training created for and by public servants.
Before we explore how these technologies can transform governance, policymaking, and public services, let's answer the question, what is generative AI?
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. We put that out last week because, and this is where I want to conclude, is because we wanted people to go out and try these things. I think that before, apropos of new ways of working, as we read nothing in the media except the sky is falling and AI is going to mean the end of humanity and the death of everything as we know it, we need to try it. And especially for public sector professionals, I think it's extremely important for us to try these new ways of working, whether it's generative AI, whether it's using data, whether it's human-centered design. The whole focus on upskilling is really meant to be a plea and an argument for experimenting with new ways of working that are possible now in the 21st century to see what we can do to improve how we serve residents. So let me stop with that and I'll open it up to comments, questions, etc.
Thank you, Beth. So who has a question for Beth?
Comments also welcome.
You're also welcome.
Skills, reactions, etc. Or what is ChatGPT if you want to. We can talk about that too.
It looked like, Billy, was that your hand raised or were you clapping?
I was clapping,
Okay.
but I love the slide of reframing the problem. I want to go share that with all the people I work with in the federal sphere, because I think very oftentimes people jump to the solution without thinking about the space that they're in, and what is the real thing you're trying to solve. They don't spend enough time defining that well, and instead they say, oh, we could spend $5 million on a new elevator or whatever, without kind of looking at it from different ways. So that definitely resonated with me. I enjoyed the whole talk, I will say, and I only wish that we could get I'm a contractor, I work with federal clients. We're pretty innovative on what we do on the contracting side, but the feds have a much harder problem thinking strategically, looking ahead, being creative, getting creative ideas. They don't even have the concept. Many of the ones that I work with, everything's a skill. Like, we're going to go learn the R programming language without considering what software development looks like and what you would need in order to do that. So anyway, it resonated well with me. No question, just applause.
Thanks. I'll put a link in the chat to, or at that Innovate US link, you can find both. We have a free asynchronous module on problem that's just focused on problem definition, as well as live workshops that we do on it, because I've found that it surely is the case with students, but it is, I think, even more the case even with professionals. And look, there are reasons we don't do it in the public sector, because we work in an agency that, we deliver this widget, right? We always do this grant program, or we have this contract, or like, these are the tools in our toolkit. So we often don't pause to figure out, we don't have the time. There's a lot of reasons we don't get to do that. A lot of pressure, a lot of politics, but developing that discipline, I think, is extraordinarily important.
Beth, I'll throw out one. We've talked about this briefly before, but it seems that even finding a common definition of, and we've been talking about community engagement for years, decades now, but even what community engagement or human-centered design, which I really like, or collective intelligence, but really, what is it? Once you identify the wording, what does it really mean? Because you can go to any jurisdiction and start talking about community engagement, and they may be nodding their head, but you could be talking about a cat and they'll be thinking about a zebra because their definition is so different.
Yeah, I think just two quick thoughts here. One is I think engagement, there's that expression, different horses for different courses. I never understood that was about racetracks. I somehow thought that was about food courses. It took me a while to understand what that meant, what that expression meant. If you're trying to define the problem, there's a different kind of engagement that you're going to do than if you're looking for solutions. In other words, the audience that you're trying to talk to may be very different. And engagement can mean talking to peers in my agency, talking to peers across agencies, talking to university professors, talking to industry experts, talking to the people who are most affected. In other words, stakeholders versus, so it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, and being specific about what you're trying to learn, what you're hoping to gain, and who your audience is very, very important. There's another expression I learned when I went to the federal government, which is never assume malevolence where incompetence will do. Now, that's not a very nice expression. I'm not sure who taught it to me. They shall remain nameless, even if I did remember. But what I see in my work is that there's so much goodwill to actually engage and so little understanding of how to do it. So to your point, it's not just a definitional issue. It's like, where do I start? Government has traditional ways of doing stakeholder engagement, or bringing in people face to face, the usual stakeholders, et cetera. But if we talk about especially what could we do with new technology, people don't have a foggiest idea of how you would set this up, how you would design it. And it's not limited to people in government. I'm working now with a group that's trying to develop some global engagements, democratic engagements around AI. And the whole question of like, what's the question? How do I organize it? What tools should I use? Should I do representative engagement? Should I do non-representative engagement? How many engagements? This is a learned set of skills, which is why I come back to the fact that this is something we can and need to teach people, because it is not learning how to speak to people, especially vulnerable communities, minoritized communities, traditionally excluded communities, is a skill to know how to do, and it's something we have to commit ourselves to learning. So
I'm working on a survey that Johns Hopkins and Bloomberg want to do with mid-sized cities. And the intent, the desire is to try to get a better understanding of kind of what's the state of the data literacy of the workforce at the city government level. And the things that you're talking about are things that are getting me to think the kinds of questions we've been playing around with assume a problem that is maybe already defined, when I don't think the problem that cities are faced with are yet defined well by them, other than the fact that they realize they need to hire more people that are, data analytics types. So they're looking for they've already figured out that the solution is to hire these people, which of course they can't.
Right. Right. So yeah,
talent they really want. And then of course they hire them at a high cost perhaps, and then they don't keep them because there are reasons why those people are not happy once they come into the job. So you're making me think wonderfully about the fact that maybe some of the questions we ought to have in the survey are thoughtful questions about mindset, almost to get people to really be thinking more deliberately about what the condition is that they're faced with, or what is it that they're really struggling with, beyond the fact that they can't fill positions, for example.
So Judy, I couldn't agree more. And there tends to be, especially now in this new technology environment, and where lots of people, especially at Bloomberg, are thinking about these skills, people get very obsessed with like one thing. Oh, human-centered design. Oh, everything is solved with human-centered design. I just got off the phone with a public servant in Australia. It was like all behavioral insights all the time. Behavioral insights, love behavioral insights. So there tends to be a lot of bright, shiny object in this space. I will say that all of this curricular and training work grows out of a lot of survey work that we did, all of which is open, and I'm happy to share all of the survey questions we've developed in the past. So if you drop me a note offline, I'm absolutely happy to share that with you, all of, including survey questions about data literacy that we've done in the past. So very happy to share and see if there's any inspiration there.
Yes, sounds terrific. Thank you so much. I think the other thing, let's let Tom ask his question, and if the others don't, I might follow up with another question.
I think Kitty had her hand up before I did.
So I have to confess that I have to jump off in a minute. So maybe I could just gather the question or two questions really fast, and then I'll give some brief answers, and then I will vanish.
Tom, thanks. I won't belabor this point, but I think that one issue with uptake in agencies is will rather than skill. And I say that because when I did a mastermind on boundary spanning last year, learning boundary spanning skills, one of the people who was the top enterprise architect at Federal Student Aid said, you know, I'd love to do this, but my boss won't let me talk to that guy over there. Now, you know, first of all, she shouldn't have a boss that says something like that, that's sort of rice bowl centered. But second of all, she's got to decide whether she's a kind of a woman or a mouse. I'll say that, I'll stop there, but this is not just a matter of skills.
Actually, it relates quite well to what I was going to ask. I work on enterprise risk management with government agencies. And one of the big problems we have is to convince people to look up from what they're doing and get a little strategic foresight, you know, what's on the horizon that we should be worried about. And it strikes me you're doing something quite analogous, which is look up from what you're doing and ask whether maybe you want to be doing something better or something else. I'm curious whether you have any stories of what works in terms of going to an organization and selling the idea that they should be looking up from what they're doing.
So let me give just a brief answer to that, and I don't want to discount the comments we made. We could have a much longer conversation about politics and the current political climate that we're in and all the confounding factors. So this is not to discount this, it's just in the interest of time, I will be brief here. So Tom, two things very quickly. One is success works. So doing something small and fast. It's why I love the fact that in South Australia, they have a defined concept and an agency called the 90-Day Project Group. And they have a whole construct and an official program called the 90-Day Project. And they're funded, and it's a known entity. So success breeds success, and showing people, you know, what I did in the work that we're doing in New Jersey, nobody had a clue what we did until COVID happened. And we turned around and, you know, showed them, but to show them why it made a difference. So therefore, taking on things that will, if it takes 5 years to show people why, you know, horizon scanning and systemic thinking and complex, you know, complexity analysis and systems thinking, as you're talking about, works, you know, then it can become very difficult. So just for one's own sanity, figuring out something that will help is really, you know, that will demonstrate success, I think is extraordinarily important. But I wouldn't discount the value of just being able to show people, again, they have to understand it for themselves. They have to learn in an environment in which they are not afraid to ask questions. So when we talk about also upskilling, we never mix, for example, bosses and underlings, because then the bosses can't say, I have no idea what you're talking about and I don't know what this is. So it's really thinking about who do you have, and like a small thing is just to separate who's in the room so that everybody feels comfortable saying, I have no idea and I actually really want to know this. And the last thing is, again, like getting leadership to actually embrace, to learn it for themselves is extraordinarily important, because only then do they begin to recognize, this is something we think everybody needs to know. One of the big reasons a lot of these skills I'm showing you aren't working, we're not there yet, is because we have no vision for how we train people in the government in the United States. Every company has a vision for what its employees should know. And the largest employer in the country, the government, has no learning agenda. We just don't. Some agencies do, some agencies don't. We haven't had a pronouncement from the White House about learning since 1994. So, and the statute that drives training is from the 50s. So I should have started, so something we need to do. Okay, with that said, I'm holding all the theater tickets and nobody can get in unless I leave. So
I want to thank
gonna
you,
jump
Beth,
off.
for joining us. I want to thank Mozart for joining us for a while. And I
she's
encourage
still here.
everybody to read Beth's book, and we will include a link to the Burn Center in our next newsletter. Beth, have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for the great conversation, and congratulations to the essay winners. I'm sorry. I hope somebody will send me a copy afterwards. I'm always happy to support student work.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, super. Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Back to you, Judy.
All right, great, thank you. And that felt rushed. I think there were probably many more things we would like to have talked to her about. So I feel that we're blessed that we probably can pull her in and bring her back at any point if it makes sense for us to want to dive deeper on any of the things that she spoke about. Okay, so this is the business part of our meeting where I want to tell you a little bit about where we are. And then I want to ask one of our winners of our essay contest to speak up and share with us a little bit of the paper that she wrote. So in just a minute, I'll ask Jessica, but I also want to introduce you to Dylan as well. So our chapter is in good health. We have 228 active members, active paying members. We have $25,348, at least as the end of last month or the beginning of this month, in the bank. We'll lose a little bit of that money because we're happily giving it away to a couple of people, but we're in sound financial position or health. And in fact, that is the reason why we wanted to reach out and encourage this contest as an annual opportunity for us to not only see and meet and hear from the people of the future that are going to be guiding public administration in the future, but also to help in any way to support their educational opportunities. And then I want to talk to you about the election. So we had this contest. It was the first time. So this is the inaugural group that we are able to celebrate. The contest was to ask people who are currently in school, so they're either in graduate programs or undergraduate programs, and we wanted them in schools locally. Now, they could be a school from outside the state or outside the city, meaning DC, but we wanted them to have a location in the metropolitan area where they're actually doing classes, offering classes to students, so that we could say they were a local university or college. And all of these are programs of public administration that we reached out to, asking for them to share this contest opportunity with their students. So our first winner is Jessica Nguyen, and she is with the University of Maryland. Her topic, the title was Mitigating Maternal Mortality in Maryland, Integrating Midwives into State Medical Systems to Reduce Racial Disparity. And she linked this paper to our social justice theme, because that's something that for the last 2 years, our chapter has focused most of our attention in terms of speakers and activities around issues of social justice. So as the winner, she's going to receive $2,000. And she's also going to receive 3 years of membership in our, not just our chapter, but in ASPA. The second place winner, and I don't want to in any way denigrate the fact that he's second place because he did a fabulous job too, is Dylan Desjardins, who is with George Washington University. He's going to receive $1,500 and also a 3-year membership with the society. His title of his paper was Open Algorithms, Moving Away from Magic 8 Ball Governance. So you can see both of these are terrific topics. They're not similar in any way in the sense of theme, but they capture a lot of the things that are important to us in the way in which we move forward in figuring out how we govern with fairness. And we meet the population, the populace's need for services in the most effective way possible. So we asked Jessica if she wouldn't mind taking maybe 5 minutes and talking to you about her paper and what her paper covered, so that all of you could have a chance to enjoy and benefit from what she had to say. And before I open the mic to you, Jessica, I want to thank John Palguda, who's on this call, Alan Lomax, and also Dale Jones, who couldn't make this call. He had a meeting tonight, but the three of them reviewed the papers for us and looked at the criteria we had set out to ensure that these papers met the criteria for the contest. So thank you very much to the three of you for doing that. With that, Jessica, congratulations, and please take the mic and talk to us.
Oh my gosh, Judy, thank you for the lovely introduction. And thank you to the committee for reading my essay and for just like the support of this chapter. So just a little bit about myself first. I'm Jessica. I am an undergraduate senior right now at the University of Maryland, and I'm doing an accelerated master's program. So next year, I'll be also staying at UMD for my MPP. And so this paper that I wrote was the first ever policy memo I submitted for my grad program. And the culmination of my whole first semester of learning what policy memo writing could be like. And we had to pick a topic that was close to our hearts. So the title of my paper, as Judy mentioned, is Mitigating Maternal Mortality in Maryland. And I think it just kind of comes, the history that I bring to this paper is oh my gosh, I'll start with, there's like a lot of stories. So yeah, my mother, I'm the child of Vietnamese refugees, and my mother was the last child in her family to be born. And so my Bang Ngoai, my mother's mother, had passed away in Vietnam during childbirth, or shortly after childbirth. And that is a story that kind of has followed me throughout my childhood, is the different infrastructural obstacles that are that block people from being able to birth healthy children and being able to survive that. And it also just kind of reminded me of the context of the climate that we live in right now, where birthing is birthing, and then the option to not have a baby is criminalized and politicized in so many ways. And so that kind of context brought me to this paper and exploring what are ways we can mitigate maternal mortality, because it is such a big public health issue that is really the statistics are really astounding. So even though the US spends more than any other developed country in maternity care per capita, we also have the worst maternal mortality rate, which is something that people in a lot of global discourse would say is very is not supposed to be a thing in developed countries. And so I wanted to kind of explore that more. And then when you look at the statistics too, the US has the highest maternal mortality rate, but that's actually lower. That's lower than US Black women. When Black women have an exceptional, US Black women have an exceptionally high maternal mortality rate. And that kind of, that makes the US's ratio higher. So I wanted to kind of investigate that more and see okay, what can we do and why is this rate so high? So my paper explores the scope of Maryland specifically. And my paper found like different results. So there's a lot of factors that affect maternal mortality rates. And it involves like a long history. Like there's no one pinpointed thing that you can point to ask like why maternal mortality is an issue. It's a series of like public health. It's also a history of different environmental injustice. But I think I focused on something that we've seen in a lot of developed countries actually is midwifery. Like midwives work in tandem with the physician to like have healthy birthing. And then that's not actually something we see in the US at all, really. Like midwives are typically considered to be like kind of like outside of like, don't really work with physicians like that. And looking at the numbers is like the midwifery model of care has been proven to reduce C-section rates, which I learned is like, that is one of the reasons why maternal mortality rate is so high, is because so many people opt for C-sections, but it's actually supposed to be in global standards a thing you only do in life-saving emergency procedures, but in the US it's kind of considered like, oh, this is like an option you can do. And it comes from also a culture of like a long history of white supremacy in our medical system. So it comes from like midwifery is historically like a Black and Indigenous women-centered practice. And then with the rise of medicalization culture in the US, there was a lot of lobbying and a lot of stigma against midwifery because of like things that we hear, like it's primitive, it's not sanitary. And so we kind of see that reflected in how midwifery is considered in like social context today. It is like pretty stigmatized still. And so that my essay uncovered a lot of the layers of like the culture there. And then, yes, C-sections like play a big role, like introduce a lot of risk for the birthing person. And so my paper kind of covered the culture war piece in that, as well as you know, what the state of maternal mortality is like in Maryland. And then at the end, I kind of proposed that some solutions to incorporating more midwifery into the US's like model of care. It includes incentivizing midwifery training programs because there is a huge shortage of midwives. And I think it's also just because of like the stigma against the career, and also just not the knowledge, not like there's no really like common knowledge about the profession. And so I propose that the state of Maryland create a fund to support the expansion of this workforce, to prioritize admitting students from underrepresented groups into the field, because right now it's actually kind of flipped. The people who are practicing midwives tend to be white women, when you know, who we're seeing die the most from birthing is like Black women. And I think if we return to that, to like model of care where midwives are, you know, trained and culturally competent, I think that will create like a much better like birthing outcomes for Black women and people of color in general. So yeah, that was my essay. Thank you so much for giving me this time and space to kind of share a little bit more about it. I definitely think I went over time, I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm so thankful for you all just to be able to read this paper. Means a lot to me, and I'm really happy that it could resonate with this group.
Jessica, that was perfect. We will be uploading your paper to our website. We will be putting it in our social media and also in our newsletter. We are letting our national office know so that if there are ways in which they can share your paper and Dylan's paper with everyone, we want them to both be shared beyond the Washington, D.C. area. But we're really thankful that you even took us up on our offer to participate in this contest. And for you and Dylan both, not only thank you very much for this and congratulations, but welcome to the chapter, because we're hoping to be able to see you more and more in the future. So
Thank you so
thanks
much.
a lot. Yeah, great, worthy of applause. And Dylan turned himself off his camera, so he might have stepped away, but I wanted him to have a chance to say a few words too, but if he comes back, oh, good, Dylan. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I just feel like you should have an opportunity to just say hi, and anything that you might want to say for a minute or two, we would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just about to type in the chat, but I wanted to echo Jessica, that really excited and honored to be selected as to have my essay selected for this. Excited to join the chapter and sit in on meetings like these for the next 3 years. For example, the speaker today talking about Code for America was interesting to me because that's a project I've been interested in and considered getting involved in the past. So I think a lot of the material that this chapter talks about will be really helpful and interesting to me in the near future. I won't talk about my essay today, but thanks for those who gave it a read through already. If anybody else gets a chance to look through it or has any questions for me, happy to chat about it more. But for now, just great to virtually meet all of you, and looking forward to future meetings or future connections ahead.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Dylan. Yes, clap, clap, clap. So with that, I want to turn our attention to the election. We normally start our election a little bit earlier, but our elections this year are going to start after Memorial Day. The term of offices starts in January, so we're not late in doing the election, but we normally, I think we try to have our elections done by now, and we are a little bit behind schedule. We have a terrific slate of officers. I'm thrilled, and several of them are on this call today. Let me see, I don't know why there's some background noise. Might want to mute some phones or laptops. Okay, thanks. So the slate of officers that you will be seeing with their bios in the next week or so are Steve Putansu, who's got COVID, so you can't see his face, but he's on. He's currently our secretary, and so he's on the executive committee. He's running for president of the chapter. He works for GAO, Government Accountability Office. He's somebody that has had longstanding commitment and work with ASPA, so he's not new to the chapter in any way, and he's not new to ASPA. Vice President is Dale Jones, who I mentioned to you was not able to join us tonight. He was really regretful about that. He's somebody that was chancellor in the state of Pennsylvania education system, and he has just recently moved back to DC, but he too is a longstanding member of ASPA. Betsy Super is going to be running for secretary, and I know she was on. I'm looking to see if she's still on. Oh, there you are. Hi, Betsy. Betsy's with Partnership for Public Service, and I'm so excited. She and I have actually not talked about the fact that I was with the partnership for 14 years, but I tried to look for her the other day when I was over there, and I just didn't get a chance to see her, but I'm so excited to have someone from the partnership and somebody with Betsy's background joining the board. I hope. I'm not going to judge the outcome of this thing, but having her run for secretary. Wendy Chen, I think Wendy's on, isn't she? She was on a second ago. She is running for treasurer. And let me see, some people may have dropped off. Need to get back in. They were in the waiting room. So I think a couple people are having some maybe technical difficulties. But anyway, Wendy, too, has been a longstanding member of ASPA and very committed to public administration, and she works in the federal government. Kitty Woolley, who's on the call, is running for at-large position, but it would be for programming. And she actually is our most virtual member because she lives in Colorado, but participates actively, not just within our chapter, but with a lot of other things that she does to try to bring interesting topic and speakers to people who are interested in hearing and learning about a lot of different things. Josh Lanier. Josh, I know you're on. We have your picture here. He is also running for an at-large position for our chapter. There he is waving. So welcome, Josh, to being on this slate of officers. And then the remaining slate are current board members. So Alan Lomax will be running as in an at-large position. Whitney Meyerhofer and Paula Acevedo, who are both a part of our communications team. Paula is responsible for our newsletter and all the internet, all of the email communications you often get from us. And Whitney is responsible for our website. Both of them are interested in running again, so they're running for at-large, but in the communications area. Keisha Gill is a fairly new member of the board. She filled a vacancy that we had several months ago and now has become a truly active member. You may recognize her from some book talks that we've had in the last year and a half, and we need to restart some of those, I think. But she too is running again for an at-large position. And last but not least is Connie Burhane, who has been on the board now for 3 years, I think, and has been responsible for membership, keeping contact with new members and trying to make sure that old members stay members. So that's an area, by the way, that those of you that aren't on the board might, if you're interested in helping, I know Connie would love for more help in trying to expand our membership, but she's also running for an at-large position. So you can see we've got old blood and new blood. And as an immediate past president, once I leave this position, I will be on the board for 1 term as well. So you're not losing many of us and you're gaining, if all goes well with this election, you're gaining a number of really terrific new people who are going to bring wonderful energy, ideas, and blood to this group. So thank you. And you'll be, again, getting information about the election and their brief bios in the next week or so. And with that, I think that's all I had on my list. Yeah. So Alan wanted a moment. So I guess I'm going to give the mic back to him.
Thank you, Judy. You weren't able to make the February 28th board meeting, and which meant that we could actually have an open discussion about how we feel about you during that meeting, and with you moving on to your new position in the chapter starting in January. And actually, so the board voted that night that we would recognize you with a special chapter service award. Just to give a real quick brief history, back in May of 2012, Judy and several other people were called together by the current national president of ASPA and the national president-elect of ASPA and said, NCAC has been dormant for a couple of years. We got a ASPA conference coming to town in 2 more years. You guys need to get together, form a leadership team, and pull this chapter back to life. Judy stepped forward and said, okay, I'll step in as interim president during that time period. And she took us from that time period. David Reed was with us at the original part, and we had to find all the files and records and put together a revitalization plan, file a new 990, an application as a 501c3, etc., and talk about programming and identify great leaders. And since May of 2012, not only have we as under Judy's leadership provided wonderful programming, but the Northern Virginia chapter was also starting to go dormant, and Judy worked with the National Council and had that chapter boundaries and as members placed underneath this chapter combined with this chapter. So since the time of the NCAC being dormant to where we are today, Judy has led multiple teams through that time period to get us to where we are. And we just want to recognize that we have, and you probably can't see it, but a Capitol Dome paperweight will be coming to you, so you can actually have that as a memento of your achievements as our leader over the last several years. And we just wanted to say thank you. We really appreciate everything you've done for us. And that's the end of my time. Thank you, Judy.
Well, thank you very much. I guess I shouldn't miss meetings because that. But thank you so much for doing that, all of you, because well, you know how much I enjoy working with you and continuing to work with you in the future. So thank you so much. For all of you that joined us, we're planning a drinks and conversation date yet to be determined so that we can chat some more about anything you want to chat about. It's one of those very sort of risk-free, no topic, just come and talk. It's an opportunity to network. So we're going to be scheduling that shortly. And then we're now working on programming for the fall, because usually we take a couple of months off in the summertime, but in September, October, we'll regroup with another topic. We're talking again still about social justice issues. And so we've got a fairly short list of ideas, but we look forward to hopefully having you join us then or in any of the events that we might have. And I hope that if there's anything that comes up, either follow on to the conversation we had tonight with Beth, or anything that you'd like us to think about in terms of topics for the future, please let us know. You can email us, call us, you can, however way you want to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, unless anybody has something they would like to say, which I'm welcome to, you're welcome to open the mic and say whatever you might want to say. If not, we will end the meeting. Woody, did you have something? Thanks.
Yes, Judy, thanks for the meeting today and the speaker. I always get inspired when I listen to Beth Noveck talk. I met her about 20 years ago, and she's been just a real asset to the field. I just wanted to let you know that about 2 years ago, I became the co-chair of a government community of practice in another association called International Association for Strategy Professionals. And our focus is on strategic planning and performance management. And we are having I'm going to put it in the chat box if you don't mind. I'll just put the link in there. We have a lineup. Oops, that's the wrong link. But we have a lineup of speakers. June 8th, we have King County, Washington, which I'm sure you know, Michael Jacobson.
Yep.
They're doing a presentation on their strategic planning and performance management activities. Then in July, I can't remember the date, but there's a presentation on foresight and strategic planning by the Secret Service. And then I have in August or September, I'm not sure yet, we're going to have a speaker from one of the DoD agencies, Defense Logistics Agency, talking about how they're implementing strategic planning. So you get the theme there. It's strategic planning. Used to be called the Association for Strategic Planning, but was recently renamed. And we hold monthly webinars, virtual meetings. We have about 100 members throughout North America. And so I'll put the link in there again. I got the wrong one, but if you're interested and want to find out more, you can contact me also. And not trying to steal your thunder, but I thought since this group might be interested in this topic, I wanted to let you know about our upcoming meetings. So
I'm really pleased that you mentioned it. We can put it in our next newsletter. We can make sure that it's on our website with a connection to whatever link you might give us.
okay.
We're happy to do that. And for any of you that are associated with other organizations that are working on things that are of interest to those of us in the practice, right, in public administration, we're happy to share the knowledge, share the wealth, let people know from a calendar standpoint what other things
Right.
might be happening so that they can participate. So thank you so much, Woody, for bringing that up.
My pleasure. I hope to see some of you there. And there is a fee, but if you contact me, I can arrange to waive the fee. So that's just the association policy, but I have some free tickets if anybody wants to attend.
So let's just make sure, Paula and Whitney, that we have his email address associated.
I'll put it in here. If you go to the website strategyassociation.org, you'll see the events calendar, and there's other communities of practice. There's a nonprofit community of practice and a private sector community of practice. So there are webinars all the time going on. But if you want to send me an email, that's my email address, and I can. And like I said, if you go to strategyassociation.org, you'll see the full calendar.
Perfect. Terrific.
We also have recordings of, we had, I'm drawing a blank right now, but we had several speakers this spring. They're all recorded. I want to say he's in Hong Kong University, publishes a lot in strategic management field. I'm drawing a blank right now. I'm getting old, but if you look on our site, you'll see we have recording of all our previous webinars. We have about 25 or 30 webinar recordings up on the website.
Great. I mean, let's note that, Paula and Whitney, when whatever we post, so people know that it's not just future events, but past events, so people can get caught up on by going to Woody's website. Terrific. Thanks, Woody.
Thank you very much.
Anything else anybody else would like to share? Hey, John.
Yeah, Judy, I just want to, as part of the review committee for the essay contest, I want to also tell Jessica and Dylan that, your papers were excellent. And one sign that, that they were excellent, I actually discussed most of them with my family afterwards. I thought they were so good. And then there was a news article that was somewhat related to your topic, Jessica, a week ago, and my daughter, sent me a text. Hey, that thing you were talking about, they're talking about it on the news. So I just wanted to add my personal congratulations to Dylan and Jessica. Good work, guys.
Excellent. Great. All right. So anybody else? Thank you so much for tonight. Really appreciate you joining us. Look forward to seeing you again soon. And thank you so much for some of our new folks who are joining us, because we're always looking for new people to join us in ways that are going to be fruitful for all of us. Thanks and good night.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.